Hi, welcome back to 345 Delta Foxtrot. My name is David Ferguson. Okay, this is the fourth video in my series on how to build a van's fuel tank. And part one was on getting started, and parts 2 and 3 were on getting everything that you need. And now we're ready to actually start building the tanks. And this video is in 11 parts. I hope that sounds like it might be pretty long, but there's not all that many slides, so I hope it doesn't end up being too long. The parts are given here in case you want to fast forward to some specific topic. The 11 topics are shop prep, personal prep, part prep, mixing CS3204, the amount of CS3204 to use, spreading the CS3204, aligning the ribs, placing the rivets, bucking the rivets, sealing up the shop heads of the rivets, and cleanup. Okay, the first topic is shop prep. And a lot of this is fairly standard generic stuff for any shop. You want it to be well ventilated, but it's particularly true when you're working with CS3204 because it's kind of stinky. It's not terrible, but do whatever you can. Open the door, open the windows. If you're working in the garage, if you can, open the garage door. If you absolutely have to, you can wear a respirator, but I don't think you'll find it that bad. It's just slightly annoying. You want your shop to be at a comfortable temperature. And if you read the spec, the data sheet for the CS3204, it says that the standard conditions are 77 degrees Fahrenheit and 50% humidity. And if it's hotter than that or more humid than that, then the work life goes down and the cure speeds up. And of course, vice versa. If it's colder than that, then the work life goes up. And you can use that if you want to speed up the cure. You can actually add hot pads or whatever, turn up the temperature somehow, and speed up the cure. And that's okay to do. I believe it in the data sheet, it says up to about 120 Fahrenheit. You should definitely read the data sheet and check on that. You want good lighting, and if the lighting in your shop is not already very good, then you might want to have some puck lights or flashlights or some additional lighting for when you're working on the fuel tank. If you're using puck lights, you can put them in a plastic bag, try and keep the sealant from getting all over them. You're going to want a workbench, and I found that you want to put the fuel tank on a workbench that is lower than normal. You want it to be only about 24 inches high or thereabouts. And so I used sawhorses from Harbor Freight. I used 2 of them at adjustable height sawhorses, set them to the minimum height, and then put a 2-foot by 4-foot piece of plywood and use that as the workbench. And if you ever want to use the piece of plywood again, you want to cover it with paper because you're almost certainly going to get fuel tank sealant on it. In addition to the workbench where the fuel tank is going to be, you're going to want some other workspace, a bench or a table or whatever you got for mixing up the sealant and weighing it out and all that kind of stuff. And if that is anything that you care at all about, I definitely recommend that you put paper down there as well. And in part 1, I talked about the cradles, and I recommend that you build the cradles so that you can set the tank at either 30 degrees, 90 degrees vertical, or 150 degrees. And so when you're riveting and cleaning the inside of the tank with acetone and things like that, you're going to want to be able to put it at 30 degrees and 150 degrees. But when you're initially putting the ribs in the tank, you're going to want it sitting vertically. Now, you don't exactly have to do it this way, of course. You can put the tank on a regular workbench and then stand on stools in order to work and all that. But I recommend that you spend a little bit of additional effort on the cradles and the workbench, and it'll make your life a lot easier. You're going to want about 50 Clecos dedicated for use with the CS3204. I recommend marking them with blue tape. Of course, you could mark them with a Sharpie or however you want to do it, but if you just put a little piece of blue tape around the Cleco, it will also help keep them a little bit cleaner because they're going to get fuel tank sealant all over them. So, and they are reusable. Just let it dry and then you can clean it off at the end. But there's no reason to mess up more than about 50. And if you need to, if you have a nice floor wherever you're working, you want to cover that as well. If it's just a concrete floor, if you get a little sealant on it, you can just clean it off with acetone, and it's probably not too big a deal. That's just up to you. Okay, topic 2 is personal prep. And working with fuel tank sealant is messy. You just got to plan for it. Wear old clothes. If it gets on any sort of cloth, it is not going to come out. So make sure that whatever you're wearing is basically disposable, or that you just don't care about what it looks like. That includes your shoes. If necessary, you can buy shoe covers from Harbor Freight. They're not very expensive. You probably get them off of Amazon as well. Definitely going to want gloves. And I recommend the 7 mil thickness, non-textured gloves, and buy a size small enough for your hand so that you can pick up a single rivet, so that you have good dexterity with your hand. And the rest of the safety equipment is kind of up to you, personal preference. Whenever you're in the shop, you should probably be wearing safety glasses. So I would definitely recommend that in addition to the gloves. But hearing protection, wearing a mask or respirator, things like that, that's kind of up to you. You are going to be doing some riveting, so hearing protection is good when you're doing that. But the rest of the time, you wouldn't need it. Okay, part prep. I recommend using minimal fluting. So basically, you flute the flanges of the ribs in order to get them nice and flat and straight. And when I was clecoing everything together, I thought it was fairly difficult to get all the ribs in and lined up and in place. And I thought that it was going to be just incredibly difficult to get the ribs lined up and in place when you had fuel tank sealant everywhere. And it turns out that that's not true, and we'll talk about that more in a couple of slides. But all the fluting that I did, I kind of regretted, because it just opens up little gaps on the flanges of the ribs that you're just going to end up trying to fill with sealant. And unless your ribs are just really, really bent, I recommend just not fluting them at all. And then the instructions say to scuff the inside of the fuel tank wherever you're going to have a rib, to improve the adhesion of the fuel tank sealant. But in addition to that, you want to scuff the flanges of the ribs and anything else that fuel tank sealant is going to touch. Wherever you're going to put in the flange for the vent tube, the flange for the fuel line, all of those areas you're going to want to scuff. And I talked about in a previous video about you can either do it manually or you can buy these scuff balls and put them in your drill and use that to help scuff. And then I clean everything with super clean. I dilute it down 4 parts water to 1 part super clean, and then basically try and clean it or leave it in contact with the aluminum for about 3 minutes. It actually etches aluminum, so you want to be a little bit careful and not get carried away and with it. But I found that both the scuffing and cleaning with the super clean do improve adhesion. So I believe that I mentioned in a previous video, you can just take some super clean and a piece of scrap metal and put it in for 10 minutes and judge for yourself whether or not you think it's etching too much, and just back off. on the time and dilute it down more. And if you read the data sheet, it talks about how to prepare the parts for the CS3204 to get good adhesion. And basically, they recommend just a solvent clean. And they say that the CS3204 adheres tenaciously. And I found that that is true. I did some adhesion experiments, and I found that CS3204 does have pretty good adhesion. It wasn't the best thing that I found, but it was one of the best. So anyway, this is just kind of a reminder that you should print out and read the data sheet. Okay, the next topic is mixing the sealant, the CS3204. It's fairly straightforward. Get yourself a nice mixing cup. I recommended some cups that I got at IKEA. They're sturdy plastic cups with a smooth bottom. Another cup that I saw, but I haven't actually tried, is I think it was on Temu, and it was a dental mixing cup. So, dentists mix up things like epoxy, and so you might go on Amazon and search for dental tools and dental mixing cups. Now, more than likely, anything that you find in that category is going to be more expensive. Like $2 a cup or $3 a cup or something. Whereas those ones that I found at IKEA were like 30 cents a cup. But most anything will work. Just a plastic party cup will work. I do recommend, it's not necessary. A clear cup is kind of nice because you can see that how well you're mixing it. And for scooping out the part A stuff, I recommend using a fairly sturdy spoon, like a metal spoon or sturdy plastic. Most plastic spoons are kind of wimpy, so try and find something a little sturdier than that. And you also need a popsicle stick. So, you scoop out a fairly large amount with your spoon, and then, you try and get that into your mixing cup. And so you use a popsicle stick to scrape that off the spoon, and then you use the spoon to scrape it off the popsicle stick, and pretty soon you get it all in the mixing cup. And I recommend dedicating the spoon to just part A, because if it only has part A on it, and no part B is the hardener, you can always clean the spoon with acetone. Even if you let it sit overnight or whatever, it won't cure, it won't harden because it has no part B. And so you can always clean your spoon up and use it again. So what you do is, you put your mixing cup on the scale, you hit tare, you add the part A, and you record the weight of the part A, and then you hit tare again, and then you want to add a tenth of that amount in part B. So say it's 31.7 grams of part A. Well, then you want to add 3.17 grams of part B. And the easiest way to do that is just to hit tare again and then add 3.17 grams of part B. And I just use a popsicle stick to, you're not using that much part B, so it's pretty easy to scoop some out just on the end of a popsicle stick. In the case I just mentioned, you just want 3 grams worth. And so that's not very much. Usually I put the part B on the edge of the cup so that it is not touching any of the part A. And that way, if I have too much part B in the cup, I can, take some back out and put it back in the container. But if it, touches the part A, then you don't want to take it back out and put it in the container. So you get the right amount of part B in your mixing cup. You take the popsicle stick that you were using to dish out the part B, and you just start stirring it up. And you want to mix it thoroughly. And I don't think it actually says in the data sheet, but I think the typical amount is about 2 minutes worth of mixing. And you can also buy yourself a little paint mixer and put it in a cordless screwdriver and use that to mix if you want, but it's not very difficult just to mix it by hand. And one advantage of buying the gray CS3204 is that the part A is white and the part B is black. So when you mix the two, it ends up being a light gray, and it's pretty easy to see if you have any white streaks or if you have any black streaks. And if you do, you're definitely not mixing enough. And as soon as you've got it all mixed up, it's nice to start a timer. You've got 2 hours of work time at that point. And so use your time wisely. And you can use the same popsicle stick that you used for mixing to start applying. Or if you're going to use a syringe, you can use that same popsicle stick to start dipping it out and putting it in the syringe. So it's all pretty straightforward. Just if you have any concerns or doubts about what to do, pick some small thing where you only need like 5 or 10 grams of sealant and just practice. Run through it one time and make sure that you've got the process down. And Okay, so how much CS3204 do you want to mix up? So Austin's Manke in his videos, his rough estimate was about 30 grams per rib, and that's a pretty good number. So on your very first rib, what I recommend that you do is you mix up a little bit of extra. You mix up about 35 grams, and you weigh it. You weigh your mixing cup, everything that you've mixed up, and your popsicle stick, and write it down. And then when you're all done, you weigh it again, including the mixing cup and the popsicle stick and whatever's left in the cup. And, you take the, I've got a misprint here. You take the initial weight minus the final weight, and that's how much you used for that one rib. And then you'll know next time if you mixed up too much, too little. Presumably you mixed up too much, and you can decide very accurately how to mix up every time after that. And I recommend that you put enough CS3204 on the flanges of the rib so that you have squeeze out everywhere. Squeeze out on all the edges of the rib, and you have squeeze out on all the rivet holes, coming through the rivet hole to the outside of the skins. And if you have squeeze out everywhere, it's going to be a little bit messier than necessary, maybe, but I think it basically ensures that you're going to not have any leaks, at least for that part of the fuel tank. I recommend that you not be stingy with the CS3204. That in the Vans video that Scott McDaniels did, he seemed to be overly concerned with not putting on too much CS3204, just using the absolute minimal amount and things like that. And I don't think that's very good advice. So 1 quart of CS3204 is $130 from SkyGeek, roughly speaking, maybe plus shipping. And so that's 24 ounces. That's how much they put in a quart can. So I don't know exactly why they picked 24 instead of 32, but and a quart or 1 ounce is 28.38 cc's, and the density of the sealant is 1.59 grams per cc. So there is 1,083 grams in a 1 quart can of Part A, and they give you exactly a tenth of that because you mix it up in a 10-to-1 ratio. So you get 108 grams of Part B in its little plastic container. So you're not going to be able to use every single gram. There's going to be a little bit left on the sides of the container when you're all done. but you have about 1,100 grams of useful product, and that comes out to be about 12 cents per gram. And one rib is about 30 grams, so that's about $3 and a half, $3.50 per rib. So having a little extra, like I said, on your first rib, mix up an extra 5 grams. That's just an extra 60 cents. It's just not that big a deal. So, if in doubt, just mix up a little extra. Don't just waste it. If you use up your can and you don't have any more, you're going to have to order some more, and there's going to be a 2-month delay before you finish your fuel tank. So 1 quart is 1,100 grams, and you only need 30 grams per rib. That's enough to do 33 ribs. So, and you only have, about 6 or 7, I don't remember the exact number, per tank. So say you've got 14 or 16 ribs, a 1 quart can is plenty to do that, and is probably enough to do everything else as well. Although you definitely, when you start on sealing up the final baffle, you want to make sure that you have enough when you do that. And so, cost is not really much of an issue when it comes to determining how much to use. And say you just go hog wild and you use a whole quart more than you really needed. If Scott McDaniels uses 1 quart, you use 2 quarts, Is that, a big deal? He mentions that, it adds additional weight. Well, that's not really all that true. You're going to be adding an additional 1,000 grams of sealant to your tanks, both tanks. But there's going to be 700 grams less gasoline in your tank. So the actual weight increase is only 300 grams for both tanks. And that's only 2/3 of a pound. And like I said, that's assuming that you just went hog wild and just put sealant everywhere, twice as much as you really needed. So there's essentially no weight penalty to using too much, or just very little. And now there is, your tank will hold a little bit less fuel, but, if you have 1 extra quart for 2 tanks, that's only 1 pint per tank, less fuel. And, that's pretty insignificant in my opinion. So I would not worry about, using extra sealant. Use as much as you think you need in order to get your tank just sealed up very well, thoroughly. Okay, spreading the CS3204. There is a 2-hour time limit, and it's already mentioned, when you finish mixing it up, you probably want to start a timer. And I had a helper helping me, and We found that about all we could get done in 2 hours was 2 ribs. So my recommendation is you start with just 1 rib. If you're working alone, definitely just 1 rib. See how it goes, time yourself, and increasing it to 2 ribs. If you have a helper, you should be able to do that. And it's just not that big a deal to mix up more sealant. So I recommend just mixing up enough sealant for 2 ribs, which would be about 60 grams, doing your 2 ribs, and then mixing up some more for your next 2 ribs. And if you read section 5 of the plans, 5.17, which talks about the fuel tank sealant, it says that that mixed unused sealant may be kept in the freezer for up to 4 days. I think that that's bad advice, personally. I would definitely not plan on it. I would not mix up any extra sealant. If you're going to do 2 ribs, mix up your 60 grams, and you're going to have 3 grams left and just throw it away, or something like that. Yes, you might be able to keep it in the freezer, and it might not be just a total solid when you take it back out, but it's going to be very thick, and it's going to be hard to work with, and it's just not going to be worth it. And we already talked about that sealant is not all that expensive. So, unless you just, for some reason, mixed up a huge amount more than you needed, it's just, the expense is just not worth it. Just throw it out. And if we already talked about the data sheet for the CS3204, the normal life or normal temperature is 77 degrees, and the normal humidity is 50% humidity. Also in the data sheet, it has the expiration date, it talks about the expiration, and the expiration is 9 months after it left the factory. So it's going to be a little less than 9 months when you get it. And if it's been sitting on the shelf, it may be somewhat considerably less than 9 months. And you can store it, at cooler temperatures in order to make it last longer. And I store mine in the freezer, just in my regular refrigerator. However, for a critical application like a fuel tank, I definitely recommend that you not exceed the expiration date. If it's for a less critical thing and you've been storing it in the freezer, it's probably okay. Go for it. But not for something critical like a fuel tank. Okay, so we've been talking about spreading the sealant, and this slide is about supporting the part while you're doing it. That basically you want to be able to use both hands when you're spreading the sealant, and I just clamped a rib in a drill press vise with a little piece of wood on each side. Because the flange is sticking out, and you can't just put it in a vise by itself. You got to clamp it at least. Well, I recommend a piece of wood on both sides so you don't scratch it all up. But however you want to do it, if you want to use some other clamp and clamp it to your workbench or whatever, just have some way to clamp the ribs while you're spreading the sealant on the flanges, and also find some way to clamp the syringe, if you're going to use a syringe, while you're filling it. And so what do you spread the sealant with? I just use popsicle sticks. They're cheap. I thought they worked pretty well. They're disposable. You can, they come with a curved end on both ends. You can just take a pair of side cutters or wire cutters, and you can clip the end if you want a flat end. You can clip it at an angle if you want a flat end at an angle. And you can use the curved end to run it along the edges of the rib and get a nice fillet. Scott McDaniels talked about changing the radius of curvature to a smaller radius of curvature and all that in order to get a nice fillet. In my opinion, that's all a waste of time. Just take a popsicle stick and run it along the edges, and use popsicle sticks to clean up any excess sealant and to get a nice fillet along all your edges. And let's see. Okay, using syringes. I thought it was going to be a much bigger pain in the butt to fill a syringe than it actually was. It turns out it's pretty easy to do. For the CS3204 B2, which is the peanut butter consistency, it's pretty easy to just scrape out some sealant out of your mixing cup with a popsicle stick, or maybe something like a tongue depressor or whatever, and just use that to fill the syringe. And then when you put the plunger in the syringe, it will push all the sealant toward the nozzle end, and so you don't have to worry about it, filling up the syringe real nicely when you're filling it. And in terms of the size of the syringe, I think most of the time you're going to be using a 60 milliliter syringe, unless it's a really small job, and then you could use a 20. And I think you're going to run into the 2-hour time limit. A 60 milliliter syringe will hold 60 times 1.6. So it'll hold about 96 grams of sealant, which is, easily enough for 2 ribs. And so I don't think you'll ever be using a 100 milliliter syringe. And then if you're using the CS3204A2, which has the consistency of honey, make sure that you put the cap on the nozzle end of the syringe. Otherwise, the sealant is just going to start running out the end while you're filling it. And all the syringes that I purchased came with caps, so just don't throw them away because you may end up needing them. And then when you're all done with the syringe, and it's still got some sealant in it, I just pull the plunger out and just set it somewhere where it won't, whatever's in the syringe won't run all over the table or something. Just and let it dry. And after the sealant cures, you can just pop it out, wipe out the inside of the syringe, and wipe off the plunger, and it's reusable. Okay, aligning the ribs. As I already mentioned, when I was clecoing everything together, I was very concerned about this, about getting the ribs in and aligned when there's sealant all over the flanges of the ribs. And so it turns out almost all my concerns were unfounded, but there are some things that you can do to make your life a little bit easier. And one of them is you clamp a little wood block on the web of the rib. The rib is clecoed in place, and then you clamp a wood block to the skin right up flush, so that the wood block is up flush against the web of the rib. Then you uncleco the rib and take it out. And when you go to put the rib back in, you just put the web of the rib up against the wood blocks and then go straight down, and the rib will be in the right place. Another thing you can do is, in addition to the wood blocks, or as a replacement for the wood blocks, is you can just take a few pieces of blue tape, and you can put them on the skins on either side of the rib, and that way when you put the rib back in, you'll know right where it goes. You'll be able to get it within a quarter of an inch of where it belongs. And then if you use the blue painter's tape, it'll just peel right off and won't leave any residue. So you don't want to put the blue tape, too close to where the rib is. Leave an 1/8 inch gap or something, so that you can easily peel the tape back off. And so the thing that makes your life a lot easier than I was expecting anyway is that when you put the CS3204 on the flanges of the rib, it makes the rib slippery as snot. You know, when you're clecoing it in, you have metal against metal, and you have a lot of friction. And if the rib has to be moved up by 1/8 of an inch, it takes a lot of force to move it over by 1/8 of an inch. But when it's all coated up with fuel tank sealant, it just slides around. And so, you know, as I had already mentioned, you know, a lot of fluting is not really required. You know, the ribs have to be reasonably flat, and they can't just be totally bent out of shape. But you know, the ribs, all the ribs that I've been getting from vans have been, you know, basically okay. So all you have to do is slide the rib in with the fuel tank sealant on it, and take your orange mini picks from Harbor Freight and get the top rivet holes lined up. And if you can, go ahead and put in a cleco, and then go down to the bottom of the rib, and if you can get the pick in there and get that end lined up and get a cleco in, then you're set. If you're having a little trouble on the bottom end, then you can go back up to the top and work your way down. You know, you've got a cleco in the top hole. You know, use your mini picks and go down 5, 6, 7, 8 holes, and then get another cleco in, and then move on down, and then you'll be able to just slide the rib right into place. And it turned out to be just way easier than I thought it was going to be. Plan out your workflow. What you're going to want to do is make sure that the flange side of the rib is on the side of the tank that you have not done yet, and the web side of your rib is on the side of the tank where you've already put the ribs in. That way you have as much working room where you need it. Otherwise, you're going to be all cramped, and I mean, it can be done, but it just pays to plan a little bit in advance. Let's see. And another thing that is extremely helpful is to have a helper. I definitely recommend that you try and recruit a family member or a friend or whatever to help you when you're working on the fuel tank. So, you know, you have one person on one side of the tank and one person on the other side. So when you put the rib in, you know, you can get both sides in and lined up, and okay, once you've got the rib in place and clicode in place, it's time to start riveting. So the first thing you want to do is you want to remove any excess squeeze out from all the rivet holes. And I believe that it was Scott McDaniels in the Vans video that recommended using a strip of paper, and that works pretty well. You just take a piece of paper, about 12 inches long and 1 inch wide, and you bend it and form a little scoop and scoop out every rivet hole. And then you load up rivets in all the holes where you don't have a cleco. And you can go ahead and load up all the holes without clecos. Normally you wouldn't do that because when you rivet, it would vibrate and they would just all fall out. But you have sealant, fuel tank sealant to hold them in place. And so you can save yourself some time by just loading them all up and riveting all the ones without clecos, then taking out the clecos, and you want to mark the size of the tank where the clecos were, because when you put rivets in, then you can't tell which ones you've riveted and which ones you haven't, at least from the outside of the tank. So you want to just put a Sharpie mark, and then when you're all done, you can just remove it with acetone. And so you just do 2 series of riveting per side. You do all the holes without clecos, rivet those, take out the clecos, put in rivets, rivet all of those, and then go to the other side. Let's see, I think I've already mentioned that you want about 50 clecos dedicated to fuel tank sealant, and they will get fuel tank sealant all over them, but that's no big deal. Just let them dry out and clean them off, and they'll be fine. You can reuse them. Okay, bucking the rivets. As I already mentioned, it's really nice to have a helper. Try and find somebody to help you rivet. It is possible to work alone, but it's a lot more difficult. And a fuel tank is kind of a messy job, and it's really nice to have somebody to help out. And make sure that all your rivets are sitting nice and flush before you rivet them. You do not want to have to drill out any rivets with all that sealant everywhere. I mean, you can do it. It would be a mess, but you can do it. But it's much better to just make sure that all your rivets are sitting nice and flush, and if they're not sitting almost perfectly flush, you can use one of those orange mini picks and push it in very firmly, and that will usually line everything up probably about 75% of the time, that'll get everything all lined up, and then your rivet will sit flush. And then if that doesn't work, you can just run a reamer through it, and then your rivet will sit flush. And I already talked about the mountain ride bucking bar bumpers, and those help a lot. Things are very messy, and they help a lot to keep the bucking bar lined up on the shop head of the rivet. So they're kind of expensive, but I would say they're worth it. Okay, sealing up the shop heads. The Scott McDaniels recommended way of doing this is to put what's usually called a Hershey's Kiss on each of the shop heads. And you just take a tube and put a little sealant in the tube, and then twist the tube around on the shop head, and it'll leave a little pyramid-shaped piece of sealant that looks like a Hershey's Kiss on the shop head of the rivets. And I found that 1/4-inch tubing is a little too small. My recommendation is that you use these acid brushes. They have a hollow handle, and just take a pair of side cutters and clip off the brush part. I mean, you don't have to, but it's usually a little bit too long. So clip it off to the length that you desire, and that works pretty well. Now, the other way to seal up the shop heads is to, instead of using the CS3204 B2, is to use the CS3204 A2, which has the consistency of honey. So all you have to do is put a little on the shop head, and it will just flow right over the end of the shop head. And the same is true for the edges of the flanges and anywhere else. So if you have some of the A2 loaded up in a syringe and just put a little dab on each of the shop heads, and it just takes a couple of seconds apiece. Just go right down the line and seal everything up. Works really well. And in my opinion, it gives a much better result. I look at the picture on the right with the A2 and compared to the on the left with the B2, and it just seems to me like everything is sealed up massively nicer and better using the A2. So you have to use the B2, on the flanges of the ribs because they're going in vertically. So whenever you have a vertical surface, you have to use the B2. But once you get the rib in, you can just clean everything up with popsicle sticks, and then you have to set the fuel tank on its side because the A2 will flow a lot. So the surface, whatever you put the A2 in, has to be horizontal. And not only that, it has to be horizontal for like 8 hours, or it'll start running. And so after you get a couple of ribs in, or all of them in, whatever, set the fuel tank on its side, seal up all the shop heads with the A2, let it sit overnight, then flip the tank over, and the next day seal up all the shop heads on the other side. Okay, cleanup. For places where you have a lot of excess sealant to remove, use a popsicle stick. Get everything, cleaned up as best you can. Get a nice fillet on all the edges with popsicle sticks. And then for the smaller quantities, I mean, you're going to end up getting sealant on your gloves, and then it gets from your gloves onto the inside of the tank. And, you're probably going to be like me and just kind of end up with a mess inside your tank. But all you have to do is take some acetone and some paper towels and start cleaning everything up. I recommend that you pay the $10 or whatever for a regular acetone squeeze bottle, and just fill that up by a 1-gallon container of acetone. Fill up your squeeze bottle, squirt some of the acetone on a paper towel, and start cleaning up the inside of your tank. Also, while you're working, you can squirt a little acetone on a paper towel and use that to clean up small quantities of sealant that have gotten on your gloves. And then you don't have to re-glove. At least you don't have to re-glove as often. Then when you're all done, you're going to want to clean up, all your tools, your bucking bar, the floor, the tables, anything. Just be careful with acetone around anything plastic. For example, when you're cleaning up your tools, if they have a plastic handle, be very careful about putting any acetone on that plastic handle. But other than that, cleaning up your tools is fairly straightforward. Acetone works pretty well. Let's see, I've already recommended that you have at least 2 trash cans with liners. Throw all your paper towels, all your gloves and all that, in the trash and just get rid of it. Now, be a little bit careful. Acetone is flammable, but it also evaporates very quickly. So it's not too much of a hazard, putting paper towels with acetone in the trash. But you do want to be mindful of the fact that acetone is flammable. I recommend that you have at least 2 rolls of paper towels handy. Basically, always have at least 1 roll within arm's reach of whatever you're doing. Having a box of the paper rags, the really thick paper towels, is pretty handy. They're pretty useful. Cotton swabs are dirt cheap, and you just squirt a little acetone on those and use those to clean up any small spots inside your tank that need cleaned up. Let's see, you can just let those syringes dry and then clean them up afterwards, and the same with your Clecos. Okay, that's it for this video. So we've talked about getting started, getting everything you need, getting ready to build your tanks, and now we've talked about actually building the tanks. I hope you found it interesting and useful. If so, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. That'll recommend these videos to other people with similar interests. That's it. Thanks for watching.